Our next work of art is one of my favorites. It is a 3-panel or a triptych. It is by Hugo van der Goes, and it is titled The Portinari Altarpiece. And what we're looking at here is the 3 panels that are painted on the inside, or when it's open. Here, to give you a better sense of scale, this is it installed in its current location in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence. It's really, really big and extremely impressive. What we're looking at here is a painting by a Northern Renaissance artist, Hugo van der Goes, and it was for an Italian banker, Tommaso Portinari. He paid for it to be painted and then shipped down as a donation to his family church in Florence. So what we see here is an altarpiece painted by a Flemish artist for a Florentine family, the Portinari family, and then given as a gift to a church in Florence. Tommaso Portinari was an agent for the Medici banks in Bruges, and he sent this back as a statement of his own culture, status, and wealth. It's a triptych, right? A 3-panel painting, the vocabulary term, triptych. And in this triptych, what we see are, the central panel is the Adoration of the Shepherds, a moment in the nativity scenes, or I should say the birth of Christ, in which the shepherds come to adore the young newborn baby Jesus. And then on either side of the main panel, we have portraits of the donors, the Portinari family. There's Tommaso and his 2 young boys, and then on the opposite side, we have his wife and daughter. When we close it, we have this gorgeous moment of the Annunciation. There's Gabriel, the Archangel Gabriel, coming down to announce to Mary that she is going to give birth to the Son of God. Do you remember what this technique is called when painting is meant to look like sculpture? Remember the term? Grisaille. Remember when we were looking at Giotto? Remember Giotto showing off by painting something to look like stone? Grisaille. That's what's going on here. So van der Goes is doing the same thing. He's showing off. He's like, yeah, I'm a painter, but I'll give you some sculpture and it's gonna look amazing and you're gonna love it. And we do. So let's look at the central panel, the Adoration of the Shepherds. And we're gonna walk around this using, yes, iconography. Good. So what we see here is Mary and Joseph, and they are knelt in prayer, and they are surrounded by angels. You see those angels all around them, and then the shepherds. And everybody's in this moment of adoring the young baby Jesus. Now, immediately, the first question students ask me is, why is baby Jesus on the ground? Excuse me, put him in a cradle, hold him, what's going on? This is based on a 1300 or 14th century vision by a Swedish saint in which they saw Mary, instead of cradling her newborn son, solemnly kneeling on the floor and adoring him. And he was lying on the ground and he was glowing with the divine light. So it might seem a little uncomfortable to see this vulnerable baby on the ground, this newborn, but it is again to heighten the idea of his vulnerability and his humanity, but also it ties in with a Northern European, a Swedish saint, and their vision that they saw Mary putting baby Jesus on the ground to kneel and adore in front of him. So it's connecting these religious visions with also our ideas of vulnerability and fragility, and then the fact that this is baby Jesus or the Christ child makes this seem almost sublime. Like it's so sad. This is human, and yet he's divine, right? And that's what we see, the glowing light coming from out of the rays of light coming from out beneath him. Look a little closer at Mary. Do you see the characteristics of the Renaissance? You see extreme details, right? Hyper detail. And then that beautiful, heavy drapery, right? And this moment with everybody looking in this somber and very almost tangible holiness. It's monumental. In front of Jesus, we see these elements here. And when we use iconography, we can better understand what we're looking at. So the irises and these columbines, these drooping purple flowers here, they are often symbols of sorrow. And they connect with the Virgin Mary, who is sorrowful because she knows the fate of her baby boy. So we see those elements of sorrow and connect that to the Virgin Mary. The bushel of wheat. The bushel of wheat establishes this setting to be Bethlehem. In Hebrew, Bethlehem means house of bread. Get it? So wheat and bread, Bethlehem. So we know this to be Bethlehem, where he was born. Additionally, bread is used as a symbol for the body of Christ. So during Mass, with the consumption of bread is the consumption of the body of Christ. There's the body of Christ, and there's the symbolic body of Christ, the wheat bread, or the wheat. And then the grapevines, you see these grapevines on this vase here. They symbolize wine, and wine is symbolizing the blood of Christ. So we have the body of Christ and the blood of Christ all set into this front of the panel. The shepherds get a lot of attention by art historians. They are remarkable in that they're unremarkable. So they kneel in prayer, they observe this as the Son of God, and yet they're very rough looking, right? They're kind of a ragged clothes. They're working men. Even Van der Goes has emphasized the rough calluses of their hands, right? Their sunburned faces. They're not flattering portraits of these gorgeous angels. Instead, what Van der Goes has done is he's given us humanity and their wonder, their curiosity at this moment. So what Van der Goes is giving us isn't just a holy scene, but he's tying in with humanism and the typical Northern Renaissance kind of hyper-reality or hyper-realistic, extreme details. On either side of the central panel are the donor portraits. And these are portraits of the Portinari family. Here we go. A little bit bigger so you can appreciate them. This is Tommaso Portinari, and this is his wife Maria, and then their two sons. We believe this to be Antonio and Francesco. Look at how cute they are. And then on the opposite side is their daughter, and her name is Margarita. And they're kneeling in piety because they're looking at that central panel. And then behind them are these extremely large figures. These are the saints that they are named after. That's St. Thomas, and he is standing behind Tommaso, right? And then we have Saint Francis and Francesco. And then over here we have Saint Margaret with Margarita. These saints are so much bigger than the Portinari family. And it's not because the Portinari family was unusually small for their age or for that time. No, 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 no. It is a visual cue to let you know who is more important. Term is called hierarchy of scale or hierarchic scale. The term means a shorthand, a quick way of showing you greater size, greater importance. In the case of hierarchic scale, bigger means better. And here, the saints are bigger because they're the saints. The Tommaso family are showing their humility because they are smaller than the saints. So it is a common shorthand that artists will use to let you know who's more important in the scene. Who should I pay more attention to? Who has more authority? They're bigger. And the saints, much bigger than the Portinari family. So when we pull these three panels back together, notice how Hugo van der Goes, the painter, has united the panels with a single landscape, a single horizon line. There are these gorgeous visual details of architecture and trees that will pull you backwards into the distance, creating space, creating depth, right? So we have our foreground with that bushel of hay, and then we have our middle ground where baby Jesus and Mary are, and then we have this background that we're encouraged to look at because of all those minute details. And let's go take a look. The back left panel, we see the Virgin Mary and Joseph and a donkey. This is the travel into Bethlehem, just before the birth of Jesus. So we're seeing the beginning of the story. And then on the back right panel, we have the arrival of the Magi, the three kings. You see them there? The three kings? So we have the end of the nativity scene. We have three panels that show us the beginning, the middle, and the end of the nativity. Now, what is the term for when you see a single figure multiple times? Like you see Mary over here and then we see Mary again. Why is that? What is that called? You said it, didn't you? Oh, you didn't say it? What about you? You said it. Continuous narrative. Got it? So we see these almost like comic book panels. There's the beginning, and then here's the middle, and then there's the end. And they're united across these three panels using the same landscape, the same horizon line. Hugo van der Goes, you're a genius! You're able to connect and create this continuity of space, but still define elements of the timeline? Oh, brilliant, brilliant, bravo, great job. And then one last thing before we move on to our next artwork. This altarpiece became a major influence to the development of the Italian Renaissance. I'm not getting confused here. You're confused. This early Northern Renaissance artwork by Hugo van der Goes is shipped down to Florence, Italy. Florence, which is bursting with talent. And all of these young artists are going to be scrambling to see this altarpiece in the church. And it is going to be influential to their understanding of spatial relationships, to their understanding of depicting the human figure, humanity, like in the shepherds. It's going to be an influential element into the use of oil paint. Yeah, this is going to be a big deal for the artists of Florence, and it's going to affect the height of the Italian Renaissance, or the High Renaissance. And one last thing. When I was studying my master's degree, I was trying to figure out a way to memorize all these different artworks by all these different artists. And a tool that me and my fellow classmates developed for this specific painting was Vander Goes the Baby. And there goes the baby. Because baby Jesus is on the floor. It's like he's like, oh, there goes the baby. So we remembered it. Oh, Vander goes the baby. I hope that helps you remember this painting.